Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and today we're going to do another one in the Meine Reise durch Afrika. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We are doing this book as a project book, so we're going to be coloring every page in it. So today I thought we would do this 2-page spread, and I have pulled out my Polychromos. I'm going to be using some blues, some turquoises, a little bit of orange and gold, black, maybe white, and we'll just kind of see how we go. But I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do these kind of things, and if you don't have Polychromos, grab your pencils and just pick something that's close. I think the key to this, though, because there are so many images, I have pulled out, as you can see, a whole handful of colors. But if you notice, I have some yellows, some blues, some turquoise, some kind of brownish reds, and that's it. So even though there's, 8 blue pencils here, we're still only using blue. And what I'm going to be doing is, as we go along, I will try and duplicate the colors that I use here somewhere else so that it becomes more uniform. I don't know if I'm going to use all of these. I just thought I would pull them out. When I edit this, I'm going to pop something up at the beginning that'll tell what colors that we did use all the way through so that you'll be kind of prepared. But anyway, let's have some fun, and then I'll probably voice over with some information about some of these Egyptian gods and what their thinking was around them and that kind of stuff. So let's dive in. Hello everyone, welcome back to Africa. Oh my gosh, it seems like it's been forever since we've been here. My apologies. Things have been a little interesting around here. We've had lots of medical things going on. To those that have asked, my mom is doing better. She's out of the hospital. She's been in 3 times since January. Bless her heart, she has just had to go with things. They found a blood clot in her lung. And so the good news is now we know what it is, so we can go about trying to fix it. So it's been a lot of doctor's appointments and those kind of things. So what else is new? The Facebook group is growing steadily, and I think it is phenomenal. People have just started posting all of their lovely pages. I love that. The conversations are lovely. Everybody has been very kind and supportive, and I haven't had to do any admin stuff, and that's been fantastic. So if you do want to join us there, I welcome you. Just go ahead and hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel and join. Click on the link below, and it'll take you to our Facebook group. Now, you do have to answer 3 really easy questions. I promise there's no math or science or anything like that. This basically helps me weed out spam, and it's my version of CAPTCHA. It also tells me a little bit of how to guide the channel, because the questions are things like, what's your favorite medium and what's your biggest struggle? Okay, and then you have to sign or check mark that you read the rules, which is don't be mean to people and don't spam us, right? But I do encourage people, other content creators, I welcome you into the group, and you're even able to post links to your videos and things if they're solicited. So if somebody says, hey, I don't know where to place shadows, and you have a video that talks about that, then feel free to link it up or link up another content creator if you know they have one. This is not all about me. though I do post all of my videos there. So while I don't want someone to go in and post every video they've ever done, if it's pertinent and relative to the conversation, I am okay with that. The same as if somebody found something on Amazon that has just been a game changer, I allow links until we can't, right? So don't abuse the privileges and we can keep them. So I'm super excited about that. The membership is also growing and we are getting videos out early when I can. There's going to be some other perks. I'm going to be doing a class sometime in the next year. I've got to get it together. I have it in mind. So there'll be some deep discounts for members. And then don't forget the Ko-fi shop, right? So all the free swatch charts and adult terminology or adult coloring terminology. I think I break down like colored pencils. Back in the day, I broke it down based on price and I talk about whether they're hard and soft and all of that. And then, of course, the videos I just did talk about that as well. But anyway, I'm not trying to shamelessly plug. Well, maybe I am. You never know. But, I just want to make sure everybody knows because sometimes I talk to people and they're like, oh, I didn't know you had a Facebook group or I didn't know I could get the free Ko-fi swatch charts, right? And so it's important that I mention them. And to those of you that watch all my videos, apologies for repetition. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in the page here. So as you can see from the colors that I posted in my introduction, we're going to be doing a very limited palette on this page and the next. And I decided to do each page as a separate color along just due to timing issues. So I will be coloring the other page as well, just not in today's color along, because I think at the beginning I said I was doing a 2-page spread, and I will, just not today. So anyway, I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about a lot of these images are Egyptian gods, and so I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about the Egyptian gods and what they stand for and how that was important to the Egyptians. So we will see where that leads us. I pulled up a website that kind of breaks them all down individually, and then I may deeper dive into specific ones. We shall see. So let's chat about that, shall we? Okay, starting in the upper left-hand corner of the left-hand page, we have Thoth, Thoth. Okay, we're starting off strong. And it says, ancient Egypt, known for its majestic pyramids, hieroglyphs, mummies, held a pantheon of deities deeply entrenched in their culture and everyday life. The gods of Egypt were many, each symbolizing different aspects of life, death, and the universe. They were worshipped and revered, and their stories were etched into the annals of history, interwoven with the lives of the pharaohs and the ordinary people. So, who was the god Thoth? In the vast pantheon of Egyptian gods, Thoth holds a predominant position. He's often depicted as a man with the head of an ibis or a baboon, creatures sacred to him. Thoth, known as the god of wisdom and writing, was revered as a mediator of godly disputes, the master of balance and equilibrium, and the scribe of the gods. He also kept divine records, maintaining the universe's balance and harmony. So he was the one that created the universal laws. His wisdom was unparalleled. He was a divine voice of the sun god Ra, and he played an influential role in the creation myth of ancient Egypt. His domain encompassed wisdom, writing, and knowledge, making him a vital figure in the civilization that deeply valued intellectual pursuits. He was the patron of scribes and often invoked for matters requiring wisdom and arbitration. The symbolism associated with Thoth is rich and varied, reflecting his diverse roles and responsibilities. The ibis, a bird known for its patience and precision, symbolizes Thoth's association with wisdom and knowledge. The baboon, another animal sacred to Thoth, signifies his role as the scribe of the gods. The crescent moon on Thoth's head represents his role as the measurer of time and the calendar creator. His association with the moon also symbolizes his role maintaining the universe's equilibrium, just as the moon helps maintain balance on Earth. Thoth could bestow knowledge upon humanity. He was the divine scribe responsible for documenting the universe's happenings and maintaining the sacred records. His power is extending to arbitration disputes among gods and ensuring balance and harmony in the universe. He was also the god of the moon and time, responsible for creating the 365-day calendar. He was revered as a powerful magician, and his knowledge of magic was believed to have helped in the resurrection of the god Osiris. Thoth's responsibilities were immense, and he was a crucial figure in the universe's functioning as per Egyptian mythology. Thoth had held a unique position within the Egyptian gods. He was a god in his own right and an intermediary between the gods. He was the divine voice of the sun god Ra and played a significant role in the resurrection of Osiris. I thought we just said that. He is often paired with Matat, M-A''A'-T, the goddess of truth and justice. Together, they maintain the universe's balance and order. Also, Thoth was considered the husband of Seshet, the goddess of writing and measurements, reinforcing his association with wisdom and knowledge. Okay, now we're going to move on to the scroll. A scroll was constructed of a material that ranged from papyrus to parchment. However, the material taken from the papyrus plant predominantly composed the scrolls of the ancient world. Since 3000 BC, the plant was native only to Egypt and considered the major distributor to the rest of the Mediterranean world. On the other hand, when the papyrus plant was no longer cultivated as a writing material, the act caused the extinction of the species. As a result, the modern-day papyrus in Egypt came from Paris. The knowledge of the production of a papyrus sheet is unknown, as the Egyptians never recorded the process. However, many scholars reconstruct knowledge of the process through the analysis of Pliny's somewhat misinformed description and modern-day experimentation. The only place to obtain any papyrus was from Egypt, as papyrus could only be manufactured from a fresh papyrus. Okay, and we're not going to get into, let's talk about it. A construction of 2 layers of papyrus fibers, which were laid perpendicular to each other, made up the papyrus sheet. The process began from the act of separating the entire triangular stalk into very thin but broad strips. The papyrus strips were then flattened onto a board, wet from the Nile, and then the ends of the strips were squared off to form neater borders of the 2 layers. The strips were then pounded with a mallet to remove the excess water. The layers were then pressed, forming sheets. After the sheet was formed, the sheet was left to dry in the sun. On individual sheets, any rough spots were rubbed smooth using ivory and shell, so writing surface was not escalae. In order to create a roll, the sheets were glued together with the paste made from a flour that dissolved in boiling water and mixed together with vinegar. A conventional roll was sold as 20 pieces pasted together. However, the scribe possessed the ability to determine the length of the roll by cutting off or adding individual sheets to their desired length. With that in mind, the longest Egyptian roll was around 40 meters, which is 131 feet. Also, a Greek roll did not exceed more than 11 meters, 36 feet. The beginning of the roll began with the unwritten sheets and often ended with a wooden stick attached, used for unrolling. The sheets were pasted in a way that the left side of the sheet was always over the right, when they joined. In determining which side of the papyrus was the right or left was vital. The side that was written on was the horizontal side, which was called recto, where the fibers were parallel to the length of the roll and the lines of writing. A scroll was usually only written on one side unless the scroll was reused, becoming a palimpsest, or a piece of writing material where the original writing was washed off and a new writing was made. The end of the papyrus stalk could be used to tie or secure a roll for storage. And then it talks about there's different grades. It was later replaced by parchment codex because parchment was far stronger, flexible, and did not deteriorate with age, despite its heavy use. Okay. And then I thought I would talk about, there's a 52-foot long Book of the Dead papyrus from ancient Egypt. The Egyptian officials have released photos of an ancient scroll, 52 feet long, which is 16 meters. Book of the Dead papyrus was discovered in Saqqara. The 10 images show ancient illustrations of gods and scenes from the afterlife, as well as text on the document, which is more than 2,000 years old. It was not unusual for ancient Egyptians to bury the Book of the Dead with the deceased, but they didn't call it that at the time. Rather, modern archaeologists coined the term Book of the Dead to refer to a collection of texts that ancient Egyptians thought would help guide the dead in an afterlife. And I'm looking at livescience.com, and these pictures are really cool. Okay. Wadjyt, the serpent goddess. Wadjyt, also Buto, or Edjo, was a powerful goddess depicted as an elipid snake coiled around a papyrus stem, along with Nekbut, the vulture goddess of Upper Egypt. She protected the pharaoh and was often shown with the king's crown, meaning she ruled Egypt. In Egyptian mythology, Wadjyt was a guardian and a nurturer. She nursed the young god Horus and helped his mother Isis protect him from the evil god Set. This mythological story is similar to Greek myths, which is why Wadjyt was later associated with Greek and Roman deities. Historically, Wadjyt has worshipped in the Delta region as a protector of borders. In northern Egypt, she was also the goddess of childbirth and children. Over time, her role expanded to include protecting kings, reflecting her dual nature as a fierce protector and the counterpart to the nurturing aspect of her sister Nekbet. Wadjyt is often shown as a elipid snake or with the head of a snake emerging from the forehead of rulers. Her protective role is evident in the funeral mask of Tutankhamun. She was also shown as the eye of divine vengeance and sometimes as a lion, meaning she was a guardian against chaos and injustice. In rituals, Wadjyt was associated with the genus Herpetus, the mongoose and the shrew mouth, both day and night. These were mummified and buried as offerings to her. Okay. So since it's going to take us a minute, I'm going to go to another article on her. Wadjyt's worship originally started in the pre-dynastic period, but evolved over time from a local goddess to a patron goddess. Wadjyt was closely associated in ancient Egyptian religion with the Eye of Ra and the Eye of Horus symbols, each powerfully protective deities. The hieroglyph for her eye is shown below, which you can see on the second page up at the top. The hieroglyph for her eye are sometimes two are shown in the sky of religious images. There is a little consensus on which eye is truly tied to Wadjyt, as both have some importance to her. The main differences between her eyes are which side of the face they are on, left or right. The color of these eyes in amulets and ceramics are usually created in vibrant blue and green colors, which resemble the goddess's name of the Green One. The green Wadjyt eye amulets found in Egyptian daily life provide a token of fertility and protection to those who had them. The name Wadjyt is derived from the term for the symbol of her domain, Lower Egypt, and the papyrus. Its hieroglyphs differ from those of the green crown, or deshret, of Lower Egypt only by the determinative, which in the case of the crown was a picture of the green crown. In the case of the goddess, a rearing cobra. Wadjyt's name ends with a T, signifying her being a feminine presence rather than a male presence that some claim she is. The other names for Wadjyt include Wadjyt, Widget, Udo, Buto, Edjo. Wadjyt is said to be the matron and the protector of Lower Egypt in her cobra form, and upon unification with her sister Nebet, goddess of Upper Egypt, the joint protector and patron of all Egypt. Scenes of the two sisters together as two cobras can be found in King Set's the first tomb located in the Valley of Kings. The image of Wadjyt with the sun disk is called Urias and was the emblem on the crown of rulers of Lower Egypt. She was also the protector of kings and women of childbirth, tasked with guarding them from enemies that could harm them. Wadjyt's family history is largely unconfirmed, mainly found through myth and word of mouth. In one myth, Wadjyt was said to be Ra's daughter, where she was depicted as his seeing eye. Her job was to find Shu and Tefnut for him, to which she successfully did. Her father was very proud of her and honored her by commanding that she stay with him to protect him from enemies. She took her most recognizable form as a snake and struck any enemies that tried to hurt her father. She was also in charge of carrying out Ra's orders. This myth is represented by triadic seals, amulets, and more, depicting the family of gods together, including Ra as the father, Wadjyt as the daughter, and Seth as Ra's bodyguard. A clear example of these three gods being tied together was found on a triad amulet in Tel Azekah, close to Jerusalem, Israel. In another myth, Wadjyt was said to be the nurse of the infant god Horus. With the help of his mother Isis, they protected Horus from his treacherous uncle Set when they took refuge in the swamps of the Nile Delta. Wadjyt and Nebet have been portrayed as nurses to the various kings in the afterlife, breastfeeding him in order to sustain his royal qualities. These two goddesses appear in the pyramid text, maintaining the king's divinity through suckling while he's in a childlike state. The similar portrayal of Wadjyt as a nurse found on the tomb of Tutankhamun on a pendant instead depicts the king as a fully grown and standing straight up while being breastfed. He is dressed in his traditional royal attire, using goddess's milk to help him be successful in his position of king. The pendant of Wadjyt and the king was found in the context of funeral rituals and could serve multiple purposes of both resurrection and coronation. This imagery is also found on King Pepi, P-E-P-Y, the second funeral temple, which shows a damaged relief of Wadjyt's nursing the king. Okay. I am so sorry that I can't pronounce any of this stuff. Okay, the Egyptian word W''D signifies blue and green. It is also well known eye of the moon. Wadjyt was usually depicted as an Egyptian cobra, a venomous snake common to the region. In later times, she was depicted simply as a woman with a snake's head, a woman wearing the uraeus, or a lion goddess often wearing the uraeus. The uraeus originally had been her body alone, which wrapped around or coiled upon the head of the pharaoh or another deity. In her snake form, she was depicted as striking and biting those who tried to harm the king, which is why she is featured as a protective symbol on the crown, emblems, and amulets. Wadjyt is also depicted as an Egyptian cobra with large, colorful wings. She is shown in her signature green and blue colors on the snake hood and wing feathers, but she's also shown with vibrant red and gold colors that scale down to the snake's body. Gold commonly represents the gods and goddesses' eternal flesh, while red represents danger and fire to signify something as a threat. Another early depiction of Wadjyt is as a cobra intertwined around a papyrus stem, beginning in the pre-dynastic era, and it is thought to be the first image that shows a snake intertwined around a staff symbol. This is a sacred image that appeared repeatedly in the later images and myths of cultures surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, the crocodile god Sobek is one of the best-known Egyptian gods, at least by his looks. He was shown as a crocodile-headed man or as a whole crocodile. His realm was the Nile, and one myth tells the Nile was made of Sobek's sweat. Sobek was worshipped from the Old Kingdom all through to the Roman period, basically the whole time span of Egyptian ancient history. He is first mentioned during the Old Kingdom in pyramid text as the son of Neth and Seth. His was called Rager, R-A-G-E-R. The name reveals how he was seen during these early years of the Egyptian dynastic age. A dangerous and aggressive god, his names tell of his sharp teeth, how he loved robbery, and how he was the lord of the water. Later on, Sobek evolved into a protective deity. His magic turned away from harmful influences and evil. He was seen as a protector against the dangers of the Nile. Sobek later turned into a protector of the dead in the afterlife, where he revived their senses so they could live. Sobek was also associated with the healer of the dismembered god Osiris, whose body was chopped into pieces and thrown all around Egypt by his brother Set, who wanted to become a king. Thus, it was logical to see Sobek as the god who in the afterlife could repair the damage done to the bodies. Sobek had a royal role as well. He was a symbol of the king's power and a patron of the royal army. In this role, he wore the uraeus on his head. He protected the king from evil influences, Even the word sovereign was written with crocodile signs, and many kings had Sobek as a part of their names. He had the role of guardian in the afterlife as well as the bodyguard of gods, especially Ra and Set. The crocodile god was also connected with the fertility of the Nile, and like so many other gods, he also had a role in the creation of the world, especially in the later dynastic age. He was seen as a manifestation of Ra, who rose from the primeval waters and took part in the creation of earth. In this role, he was known as Sobek Ra and wore the sun disk on his head, which I think is what he's wearing on his head here. Sobek was worshipped especially in Upper Egypt and Nubia, but also in the Fayum area near the Nile Delta. There were many towns in the Fayum area, and they had their local versions of Sobek they worshipped. The 12th dynasty pharaoh Amenemhat III especially developed the Fayum region. The most famous place of Sobek worship was at the Crocodilopolis. I kid you not, that's what it says. There are 12 dynasty temples at Medinet Mahdi and was dedicated to Sobek, his wife, Renanutut, and Horus. Tame crocodiles were kept in the pool in the temple area and taken good care of, as they were considered the incarnations of Sobek. They were fed well, sometimes adorned with jewels, and after death they were mummified and buried in a sacred cemetery. The temple of the crocodile god in Kom Ombo was called Per Sobek, the house of Sobek. Here the god's wife was the goddess Hathor. There were two species of crocodiles in ancient Egypt. We know of the ferocious crocodile Crocodilius nilotus, not a very pleasant acquaintance, and it is hard to believe they would have been tame enough to be adorned with jewelry or kept in temple pools. Herodotus, however, tells in his histories that the Egyptians had another species of crocodile, which were smaller and tamer, and this is the one they kept in the temples and considered sacred. They could be used in ceremonies. It seems Herodotus told the truth. Here is an interesting survey of these two species of crocodiles in ancient Egypt. Okay, so I'm not going to go into that. Okay, next up is the fan. Since the story of the feather fan begins in ancient times, with its earliest known use dating back to ancient Egypt, archaeological evidence suggests that feather fans, particularly those made from ostrich feathers, were used in the Sudan and New Kingdom Egypt as early as 3000 BCE. These early fans were not just practical cooling devices, but also symbols of power and divinity, often associated with pharaohs and gods. In ancient Egypt, feather fans held great significance. King Tut's tomb, discovered in 1922, contained 8 fans, including both long-handled fans carried by attendants and smaller handheld versions made of precious metals and ostrich feathers. This discovery highlights the importance of feather fans in Egyptian royal culture. From Africa, the concept of feather fans spread to other parts of the world, to Greece and Rome, China and East Asia, and the European Renaissance and Baroque periods. Ostrich feather fans in particular were seen as a prestigious item. Elizabeth I of England famously declared that such a fan was the only suitable gift for a queen. This sentiment reflects the high regard in which feather fans were held among European royalty. Fans were not just decorative. They became a means of non-verbal communication in courtly settings, with different movements conveying various messages. This language of the fan added an element of intrigue and sophistication to social interactions. So I thought I would take a second and Google what the language of the fan was. So if you carry it in your right hand in front of your face, that means follow me. Carrying it in the left hand in front of the face means desirous of the acquaintance. Placing it on a left ear, I wish to get rid of you. Drawing it across the forehead, you have changed. Twirling in the left hand, we are watched. Carrying in the right hand, you are too willing. Drawing through the hand, I hate you. Twirling in the right hand, I love another. Drawing across the cheek, I love you. Presented shut, do you love me? Drawing across the eyes, I am sorry. Touching tip with finger, I wish to speak to you. Laying it rest on the right cheek, yes. Laying it rest on the left cheek, no. Open and shut, you are cruel. Dropping it, we will be friends. Fanning slowly, I am married. Fanning quickly, I am engaged. With handle to lips, kiss me. Open wide, wait for me. Carrying in the left hand open, come and talk to me. Placed behind the head, don't forget me. And with a little finger extended, goodbye. Okay. Well, that's really interesting because honestly, I would send all the mixed media messages to people because I'm sure I would drop it and put it in the wrong hand. I'd fan it too slow or too fast. Who knows? That's crazy. That is so crazy. Okay. The feather fan's journey from ancient Egypt to modern day stages and fashion shows is a testament to its enduring appeal. More than just a practical object, it has been a canvas for artistry, a tool for communication, and a symbol of elegance throughout history. As we continue to appreciate the beauty and versatility of feather fans, we honor a tradition that spans millennia and cultures, connecting us to a rich tapestry of human creativity and expression. Whether used in traditional performances, as fashion accessories, or as decorative items, feather fans continue to enhance and inspire. Their history is a reflection of human ingenuity, artistic expression, and the timeless appeal of beauty and elegance. So let's take a look at a famous fan. So the ostrich hunt fan of Tutankhamun. The hunt fan was found in the burial chamber of Tutankhamun between the two innermost shrines. From the remains of its feathers, it was clear it had been fitted with 30 ostrich feathers, white and brown, alternately set. The inscription on the stick says that Tutankhamun hunted ostriches in the desert near Heliopolis and provided the feathers for this fan. Made out of wood covered with a sheet of gold, length at the handle is 95 centimeters. Stumps of feathers may be still seen in the holes on the outer edge of the palm. A single ostrich feather represents the goddess Mot, who was the personification of truth, justice, and the essential harmony of the universe. Ostrich feathers were often used to make fans for wealthy or important people in ancient Egypt. Fans made with ostrich feathers appear frequently in wall reliefs. The ostrich was an animal brought to ancient Egypt from southern Africa. The ancient Egyptians used the eggs of ostriches to make small containers for perfume and feathers to make fans. Let's see. Okay, since this fan's going to take me a moment, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the grapes. The significance of grapes in ancient Egyptian culture. The history of grapes in ancient Egypt is a rich tapestry woven into the very fabric of the civilization's culture, economy, and religious practices. This is a comprehensive exploration of the significance of grapes in Egyptian society, examining their cultivation, uses, and representation in various aspects of daily life and spirituality. The Nile River Valley, with all of its fertile soil and favorable climate, provide an ideal environment for grape cultivation. The annual flooding of the Nile enriched the soil, making it conducive to growing various crops, including grapes. Ancient Egyptians cultivated both wine and table grapes. The most popular varieties included those that could withstand the hot climate and produce high yields. Farmers employed sophisticated irrigation techniques to ensure a steady water supply to the vineyards, particularly during the dry season. Grapes were typically harvested in late summer to early autumn, with workers carefully cutting clusters to avoid damaging the fruit. Grapes were not only a staple food, but also a valuable commodity in ancient Egyptian trade. The surplus production of wine and dried grapes allowed Egypt to engage in trade with neighboring regions. The process of winemaking involved crushing grapes, fermenting the juice in large jars, and aging the wine to develop flavor. Egyptians produced several types of wine, including red, white, and sweet wines, each with distinct flavors and uses. Grapes held a sacred place in ancient Egyptian religion, often associated with fertility, rebirth, and the afterlife. The god Osiris, representing resurrection and agriculture, was frequently depicted with grapevines. Grapes appeared in various artistic representations, from wall paintings and tombs to inscriptions on papyrus scrolls. These depictions often celebrated the abundance of harvest and the joy of feasting. Grapes played a pivotal role in social gatherings and religious festivals. Wine was an integral part of banquet feasts, symbolizing prosperity and social status. Grapes were consumed fresh, dried, or as wine, making them a versatile food source. They provided essential nutrients and were often enjoyed by both the wealthy and the common people. Ancient Egyptians recognized the health benefits of grapes and used them in various medicinal preparations. They believed grapes could aid digestion, improve vitality, and even treat ailments like headaches. Grapes were often combined with other herbs and plants to enhance their medicinal properties, showcasing the sophistication of ancient Egyptian herbal medicine. As Egypt faced environmental challenges such as climate change and soil degradation, traditional farming practices began to decline, affecting grape production. The rise of the new civilizations and shifting trade routes also played a role in the decline of grape cultivation as new agricultural practices and crops were introduced. In conclusion, the grapes of ancient Egypt were more than just fruit. They were a symbol of life, prosperity, and cultural richness. From their cultivation to their role in the religion, economy, and daily life, grapes played a multifaceted role in shaping ancient Egyptian society. Understanding the historical significance of grapes provides valuable insights into the complexities of one of history's most fascinating civilizations. Okay, I'm going to pause our Egyptian talk for a minute. So what I'm doing here is the feathers that are in the back, I am just darkening them with this Prussian blue. And then I'm going to go over what I've done before and just do another layer of this cobalt green, just to kind of smooth it out and kind of make the color more uniform. Now, I'm also going to be adding colors like sepia and Payne's gray to this in kind of the center of the feather, just to give it a little more interest, a little more depth maybe. You'll see that here in a minute, and you can see what you think. I think it's perfectly fine colored as is, right? Like you could leave it essentially, well, finish what I'm doing, right? But then we wouldn't need to do that. I really like adding the darker shades. I think it adds more interest to your pages. So here I start to fill in all those little squares, and then I realize I don't want to flip back and forth between all of these little squares. So I'm going to line them up for you. Here I start off and I'm like, oh, this is going to take forever, right? So I'm going to line them up here on the top, and then I'm just going to kind of alternate these different colors, right? All the way around. Okay, I guess I'm skipping ahead. So I decided to put the veins in, and I'm using a neutral color because I didn't want to use blue because there's times when that vein goes through orange. And I didn't want to use orange because there's times when it goes through the blue. So I picked a more neutral color, probably the closest to brown that I'm using right now in this burnt sienna, because I feel like it just really, it works with each of the colors of the feathers, right? As opposed to trying to darken them up in individual segments. Okay, hurry up, Wendy. I'm ready to move on. Yeah, I get a little impatient and then I overlap. I heard myself rushing me. Okay, so here I got smart, and I just go back and forth between these colors, keeping the same pattern, right? So going cobalt turquoise, then the dark cad orange, then Prussian blue, then dark Naples yellow, and then light cobalt. And for this segment, I did speed it up to 5 times speed because really it's very straightforward. You're filling in those little squares, right? And I'm cleaning up, tidying up my little edges. I take that same burnt sienna and I go around the outside here, and then I use the Naples ochre just to kind of blend it out a little bit and just give it a little variance of color. Now don't worry, it's just this little segment that's sped up so much. The rest of the video will be, like always, 2 times speed. Okay, now we're going to talk about these lotus flowers that she used kind of for the handle of the fan and on the vase to the right. The lotus symbol is considered to be a true icon in Egyptian mythology and ancient Egyptian art. The flower, aka water lily, closes at night, sinks underwater, and then wakes up in the morning. That's why it became a symbol of the sun, creation, and regeneration. The ancient Egyptian symbol lotus has been associated with Atum-Ra, the sun god, as a giant lotus emerging from the primordial waters of Nun when the world was born and from which the sun god appeared. The cult of Osiris is also used, the symbol related to funeral imagery and with the deceased entering the underworld, which symbolizes reincarnation. The symbol was commonly used in art to represent Upper Egypt. It was found and honored. Oh, my apologies. It was found and honored in sacred places all over Egypt. On the architecture of the capital tops of Egyptian pillars representing the tree of life, plus in tombs and hieroglyphics written in papyrus found on thrones and on the headdresses of divine pharaohs. Note, the lotus flower is an ancient Egyptian symbol of purity, cleanliness, enlightenment, rebirth, and regeneration. This ancient Egyptian symbol of the sun reflects the concepts of rebirth and creation, such as the flowers closing and sinking underwater in the night and then raising again in the sunshine. So here you can see what I was talking about by adding the dark. So I'm adding dark sepia to the orange segments of these feathers. And see how it kind of makes them look like they're bent a little bit? I just think it adds a little visual interest to our fan. And I'm just going along that spine, okay? And I just want to make sure that I get them all. Now, below the lotus flowers, there is a circle with like a line. Okay, this is called the Shen. It's the symbol of royalty and symmetry. The Shen symbol is a circle of rope that has no beginning and no end. In order to form an unbroken bond that symbolizes unity, completeness, eternity, and divine protection, which made its symbol extremely popular and well presented. The word Shen comes from ancient Egyptian word which means encircle. The amulet of Shen was worn by everyone, including kings. It was often linked to the Greek symbol omega, which symbolizes infinity. Many deities like Horus and Isis are seen holding the Shen, which made the ancient Egyptians honor the Shen as a symbol of symmetry and perfection, as shown on countless personal objects, ancient Egyptian temples, and ancient Egyptian tombs. The Shen, ancient Egyptian symbol of royalty, protection, eternity, and infinity. The Shen ring is associated with the sky falcon god Horus and used to encircle the sun and stands as a symbol of the eternity of the entire universe, symmetry, and completeness. So here I'm using the dark indigo to do the exact same thing. I just feel like it adds a little bit of interest. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you think it makes a difference. I often use dark indigo. I use it with reds too. I just think it's a really nice color for adding kind of shadow or depth. And then I go back to my lightest color and I just blend out any rough edges and any missed spots, because sometimes when you add it, I'm impatient, so mine often look like lines because I don't take the time to flick them from the center. I just kind of run a line down. And so here I'm using this light cobalt to kind of blend that out and make sure that it isn't too stark of a line. Does that make sense? Okay, so my slowness in coloring this feathering fan is messing up my rhythm. I really wanted to talk about each thing as we colored it, but that's not going to work. So we're going to move on to the top right-hand corner. Remember, his name is Sobek. He's the crocodile god. And we're going to talk about the crown. So it's called a hem crown, a symbol of royal power and divine authority in ancient Egypt. It is a triple rush crown with ram horns flanked by ostrich feathers and often featuring a sun disk and the uraeus, which is the rearing cobra symbol. Here's a more detailed breakdown. It says, the hem crown, also known as a triple atef or a mandulus crown, is sometimes referred to as the roaring one or a war cry. Let's see. It is worn by Mandulus, the sun god of Lower Nubia, the war god of Southern Nubia, called Apetamak, often depicted wearing an elaborate hem crown. Heka, the god of magic, was depicted wearing the hem crown, and also Sobek. The symbolism is sun and rebirth, royal power and divine authority, and the crown, when combined with the nemes, which is the striped headcloth we often think of like King Tut wearing, right? The blue and gold. It could symbolize the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. The Uranus symbol, a rearing cobra, symbolizes protection and royalty. So I gotta tell you guys, I was so tempted to bring in a green because the crocodile should probably be green, and I figured the stem of the lotus flowers were probably green, but I just really felt like with the colors I had been using, it would have made it ironically too busy, right? Having that fourth color, well, I don't know, fifth color, fourth color, whatever, just having another color. And so this is an example of where realism in your coloring book and color palette or limited palette kind of play in, and you have to make those decisions. And probably one of the most common things that I personally feel happens with a lot of people's art is we want to play with all the colors all the time. And don't get me wrong, there are pictures where you can pull that off. Personally, though, when I'm flipping through Instagram, and you know how it is, you're looking at them and you can appreciate people's coloring, all different levels of coloring, right? But the thing that most often, there's two things that make me pause on a picture, you know, from my fast scroll, right? Is use of light and dark. So when you add those contrasting colors, you know the ones I'm talking about, where it's like there's like a significant light source or just something that really catches your eye. The contrast, that's the first one. And the second one is a very defined color palette. It can be one color, it can be 4 or 5 colors, but when you limit your palette, you really help unify and send a solid message. Because imagine that each picture that you color, you're trying to tell a story with it, right? If you use too many colors, our eyes compete, or the colors compete with our eyes, and we're just drawn all over the page. We're like, what do I look at, right? What's most important? Now, this is just my personal opinion, but I think it's pretty universally shared. So I would encourage you in your own art, if that is something you want. Here's the thing, guys. If coloring brings you joy to color every color in the rainbow on every page, do not stop. Color them that way every time. Because this is all about what makes you happy. I'm just trying to tell you what draws my eye when I'm flipping through and looking at pages, I can appreciate the very colorful pages that people do. And I'm not saying don't use color. There is a lot of color on this page that I'm using, but if you notice, it's the same colors. It's the same orange, it's the same blues, it's the same turquoises, it's the same golds, right? Now, some of these golds are brighter than others, some are dingier than others, and guess what? That's what adds the variety to your page that make it interesting, and yet it's still cohesive. Okay, so I'm talking to the people specifically that say, I want to learn how to shade. I want to learn how to make things pop. To make things pop, you need a variance in dark and light. So if you look at the ibis on the left-hand side, right, and you've got that blue hair, that very light in the middle is significantly lighter than the ends, right? And that gives visual interest. When you look at the picture in the middle, the serpent with the wings, his wings go from a very dark turquoise to a very, very light turquoise, right? Now, I want you to contrast this to his beak, the ibex beak on the left-hand side. There's variance, but it's between indigo blue and black. Not very exciting, right? My eye just looks at it and is like, meh, right? Or even on the right-hand side, when on the crocodile crown, right? And I go from a little bit darker gold to a lighter gold, notice that that isn't quite as poppy as his face, where I've left the top of his face almost white. I didn't do that on the crown, and so the crown is blended, it's nicely colored, but it doesn't pop like the face does. Now, personally, I think that if you're coloring something like this, you want the face to be the focal point, right? Now, if I wanted the crown to be a focal point, I could reverse that. I could use the poppy light to dark on the crown and then make his face more blendy, right? So it's really telling a story, like, what should I look at here, right? So I just want to point that out. But once again, I can't reiterate this enough. It really doesn't matter if your page makes me pause on Instagram and go, whoa. If you had fun doing it, if you got some stress relief out of it, not every page has to be a masterpiece. Not any page has to be a masterpiece, right? We do coloring because this is our hobby and it's fun. Now, I personally enjoy the challenge of learning new things. And for example, if I would color this page, maybe even just a year ago, that scroll would not have that many variety of shades in it. It might have been light, like a mid-tone, with a little bit of darker light on it, but it wouldn't be quite as varied as it is now. That fan, I might have stopped a few minutes back before I put the dark sepia and the dark indigo in there, because I had colored it and it looked good, right? I was fine with that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that kind of coloring. It's all in what you want. And so when I tell people these kind of things, I never want people to feel like you have to color this way. Or if you don't color this way, you're not any good. Block coloring is awesome. And I personally enjoy doing that once in a while. And so I tend to buy books Like, I just bought some of those cozy books that are all the rage. I like the challenge of Kirby books and Joanna Basford and Rita Berman, but sometimes you need a nice little palette cleanse, right? And so I really enjoy those kind of books because I feel comfortable just block coloring, just putting in very simple shadows, not trying to do too much with it, right? And feeling good about it. So, anyway, sorry to blather on. Let's move on to this Egyptian vase, since we're coloring this right now. So in ancient Egypt, a vase with one handle and a lotus flower decoration, often a nemset vessel, is symbolized purification, the cycle of life and death, and the sun god Ra, with the lotus representing creation and rebirth. These vessels, sometimes called Hes vases, were used to hold ritually purified water and were often left as tomb offerings to ensure the deceased purity in the aftermath. In the afterlife, not the aftermath. The lotus flower, which closes at night and reopens at dawn, mirrored the sun's journey and symbolized renewal and rebirth. It was associated with the sun god Ra and the creation of world. The blue lotus in particular was considered sacred, and its delicate aroma was greatly appreciated. This type of spouted vase was used to sprinkle water and purification rites. The lotus was also a symbol of fertility in the Nile, which was essential to Egyptian civilization, and it could be found in hieroglyphics, frescoes, and architectural elements like lotus bud columns, further reinforcing its significance. So I thought that was kind of interesting. To think that there was like one type of vase, like with the one handle, right? And you know, some of this stuff, I've seen lotus flowers a lot in, you know, like yoga studios and things like that, where, you know, it's considered, I don't know. I don't want to speculate on what they consider it, but I would just say I always considered it something more like peace and love and like harmony and stuff, right? In ancient Egypt, fish held significance both as a food source and as symbol, with certain species like tilapia linked to fertility and rebirth, while others like the catfish were associated with the underworld and protection. So fish was a good food source and an economic importance to Egypt. It was a crucial part of their diet, with Nile fish being readily available and an important source of protein. Egyptians were skilled fishermen using various methods like harpooning and spearfishing to catch fish from the Nile. Fish consumption varied based on social status, with nobles enjoying prime fish while estate workers received smaller, less nutritious varieties. Fish and fish products like mullet roe and salted fish were even exported to other regions. The tilapia, known for its unique parenting behavior, carrying eggs in its mouth, became a symbol of fertility and rebirth. Hatmehit, the fish goddess, worshipped in the Delta area, particularly in Mendes, was associated with fish and the watery environment of the region. The Lepidopsis fish was also sacred to Egyptians and linked to the myth of Osiris' dismemberment by Seth. Catfish in the underworld. Catfish, particularly the electric catfish, were believed to have magical qualities and were associated with navigating the murky depths of the Nile and protecting people in the afterlife. Fish amulets, often depicting tilapias, were popular in believing to bring fertility and regeneration to the wearer. Fish were frequently depicted in art and hieroglyphics representing the Nile and its bounty. The fish was the standard symbol of the Nome 16 of Lower Egypt, further solidifying its connection to the region and its deity, Hat-Meheth. Ancient Egyptian gods with bird heads. Horus was the falcon-headed sky god. He is the son of Osiris and Isis. Isis gave birth to Horus after Osiris was murdered and hid him from his wicked uncle Seth by concealing him under her magic hair. Horus was king of the living. He is often identified with protection and associated with pharaohs. Thoth is the ibis-headed god of wisdom, knowledge, learning, writing, measurement, historical records, science, magic, and scribes. He had a good memory and was involved in the afterlife ceremony of the dead, in which the heart was weighed against the feather of truth. Thoth is the lord of moon and sometimes represented as a baboon. Temples devoted to Thoth were often filled with caged ibises and other birds that were mummified after death. There were entire ceremonies for ibises and falcons associated with the gods, Thoth and Horus. To meet the demands for falcons, which were hard to catch and raise in captivity, fake mummies made bones wrapped in rags were sold. 500,000 mummified birds have been found at a single location. At Tuna el-Gebel at Hermopolis, a huge underground gallery filled with ibises and baboon contained animal mummies arranged in figure eights, symbolic of the 8 creative gods of Hermopolis. Okay. Okay. Benu birds, often depicted as a heron, represent resurrection and the rising sun. It was a sacred creature in Heliopolis and served as Ra's, quote, Benu. New Kingdom artwork shows Benu as a gray, huge heron with a long beak and 2 feathered crests, which I think is what she is symbolizing here that I'm coloring. I think those are supposed to be herons, but I don't know. Let's see what this says. According to ancient mythology, Benu was a self-created being said to have played a role in the creation of the world. He was said to be Ba, personality component of the soul of the sun deity Ra, and to enable the creative actions of Atum. The deity was said to have flown over the waters of Nun that existed before creation, landing on a rock and issuing a call that determined the nature of creation. He was also a symbol of rebirth and therefore associated with Osiris. Okay, so under the feather fan, those are actually papyrus. I thought they were lotus flowers, or maybe it's lotus flowers with the papyrus, but it basically means unity between Upper and Lower Egypt. And the little flowers at the bottom, from the best that I can tell, are supposed to be like an Egyptian lotus. If you look at the face of them, that's what they look like. Okay, so looking at the top of the page, you see those little stars. They're called Siba. It's a star emblem representing star gods or constellations, with stars being seen as the followers of Osiris and associated with diseased spirits in the underworld, often used to decorate tombs and temples. It was a predominant representation of stars, star gods, and constellations. They believed that the gods of the afterlife and rebirth were associated with the souls of the deceased in the Duat, meaning the underworld. The Siba symbol was frequently used to decorate the tombs and temples of pharaohs and queens, reflecting the Egyptians' reverence for the stars and their role in the afterlife. The Egyptians had extensive knowledge of the night sky and the stars, referring to the circumpolar stars, those that never dip below the horizon, as the imperishable ones. Let's see if there's anything else on that. It says, most of the brighter stars were named by Egyptians, and they named 38 constellations. These constellations were used to divide the night sky into decans, the Greek word for 10. The decans were called the 36 gods of heaven, and each ruled for 10 days each year. The Egyptian symbol for the stars was a simple 5-pointed line drawing resembling sea stars that inhabited the Red Sea. In older examples, the drawing has rounder ends, and the center is marked by 2 concentric rings. Egyptian star charts and decan tables often use dots or circles as well as the hieroglyph. The infinite and unchanging nature of the stars overhead influenced the development of the Egyptian calendar and their beliefs regarding life after death. Every Egyptian temple was a complex model of cosmos, and thus many images of the stars, constellations, and stellar deities graced temple ceilings. In instances where night sky was charted on the ceiling, brighter stars were sometimes designated by circles, like sun disks. In decorative uses, the sky hieroglyph and the body of the sky goddess Nut was decorated with 5-pointed stars. It is believed the stars did not just inhabit this world, but the Duat, the land of the afterlife as well. The Egyptians believed that Ba might ascend to the sky to live as a star in heaven. Many tombs also featured deep blue ceilings dotted with bright yellow stars in the exact image of the hieroglyph in hopes to make the Ba feel at home in its new dwelling place. The stars were called the followers of Osiris and represented the souls of the underworld. The 5-pointed star with a circle was the Egyptian symbol of the Duat. All right, you guys. What do we have left here? We have about 15 minutes left. I think it's pretty straightforward coloring. And quite honestly, my mouth is dry, and you're probably tired of hearing me talk. So I'm going to leave you. And as always, I appreciate so much you following me. Let me know in the comments, are you still liking when I talk about things like this? Would you prefer something else? Would you prefer just music? Or just silence? Or, what do you like? I kind of enjoy this to a certain extent. It's a lot harder to film and edit, but it interests me because I feel like we learn new things, and we're going to learn some more when we do our next page, because we'll talk about those symbols on that side. But let me know. And until next time, happy coloring. Thank you for watching another video from Jazzydoodledesigns. If you'd like even more Jazzydoodle and a little more snark, please check out the membership below. If you're looking for a community where you can share your work and chat with other fellow colorists in a safe and welcoming environment, hit the subscribe button to Jazzydoodledesigns and then look for Jazzydoodledesigns Coloring Community on Facebook. And there you can join a group of fellow colorists to talk all things coloring and share cute pet pictures. I hope to see you there. And until next time, happy coloring.